Good morning, Yuval, and welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Mishka. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you are media department lead at Playtika. Now, everybody knows Playtika, but they don't know what a media department lead does. So what does a media department lead do?
Yeah, so I'm managing 3 teams of user acquisition managers. We're specializing in every non-social, non-search media channel, and we are running the user acquisition for almost every Playtika app, including cross-promotion for those apps.
Why not social and not search?
Oh, we have another department for that.
Okay, got it. Playtika is a big company, of course. All right. So, but one of the things that you do, in addition to growing the games through, paid user acquisition, is cross promotion. And cross promotion has been a very hot topic for the past year, ever since the privacy changes came in. Before that, it was kind of like, kind of cross promotion. It's like not really that big of a
nice
thing.
To have.
And that. Yeah, it's nice to have, and it's not as effective as proper user acquisition with the VO campaign and so forth. But suddenly it becomes this extremely strategic tool and a must-have for any big publisher. So before we start going deeper into how to do cross-promotion professionally, can you first kind of define what do you mean by cross-promotion and why does it matter?
I mean, it's cross-promotion again. It's a form of user acquisition, as you said. When you have such a robust portfolio of games across categories and you have over 30 million monthly active users, it's only natural you want to leverage that and diversify each player's experience and reach a very well-known audience that's highly correlating to your games, and basically to be able to do it for almost zero cost, right? Because it's money going from one pocket to the other. So that's only natural to do it within your games rather than outside of your games.
Yeah. So, but with the cross promotion, and thank you for the definition. So with cross promotion, there's a lot of different perceptions, and I've been in the games industry for a hot minute and dabbled in cross promotion ever since Facebook games. And the perception that I've experienced was, firstly, it's we're gonna lose the good players to the other game led by another game lead who's going to take my good players, and I'm going to have these churning players. The second perception that we often had was that players coming from one type of a genre going to another are not going to perform as well. And the third kind of a weird perception that I still couldn't explain. So let me take you back on the memory lane. So maybe 12 years ago, we were doing Facebook games, and we had a digital chocolate. So the company has gone under. I can talk freely about all the practices that were going on there. Anyways, so we were doing a lot of cross promotion there, and we had our top titles were city builders. I was doing a little bit of a mid-core game called Army Attack. And I remember we were driving traffic from one city builder to our mid-core game. And we also had a zombie game called Zombie Land, which was more like a simulation game. And when we drove traffic to one of those, it didn't perform. And then we drove traffic to mid-core game. People said it was never going to work. It actually worked really well. And we were kind of like just trying different things. We didn't know what we were doing, just looking at the data. And I remember clearly that there was also a reskin of the most successful game that we had, a city builder. And then we had a city builder based in like Vegas. And what happened was that when we drove traffic to exactly the same game, it actually hurt the traffic in the main game and didn't stay in the new game. And these are my kind of like crazy perceptions and experiences of we have a hypothesis how cross promotion should work. And then nevertheless, when we tried all kinds of different things in a very uneducated way, it was just always a mystery what's going to happen. So what are some of the common perceptions that you hear about in cross promotion every day? And yeah, like what of them are perceptions and what are misconceptions?
So very similar to what you've mentioned. One of the most common misperceptions that I hear is that cross promotion won't perform well unless the games are very similar to each other, which is only partially true. Yes, they can perform really well. We see it also in other similar games outside of our portfolio. But with cross promotion, we also see that there is a cannibalization risk. Mm-hmm. So the more similar the games are, the higher the risk of cannibalization of the origin app is. And same goes for when the games are too different from each other. And in this case, the cross would actually not perform so well, but you're minimizing the risk of cannibalization. So what we have found that is there is a sweet spot where the games are not too similar, but the audience correlate. That's where you're supposed to see the most success with cross promotion, because we know users are playing more than one game at a time. It's not necessarily cannibalizing the origin app if it's a different type of game. So that is something interesting that we found along the way. And kind of another misperception that I hear quite often, it's not really a misperception, it's more of a false expectation, where we say, okay, let's do cross promotions for our low value tiers or low value segments and cross them to another app, and let's see how they behave there, or if they're becoming a better quality or a better tier of segment. And that's almost never the case. Of course, it depends on which games we're talking about and their general performance. But when you're taking a player who's more likely to make a purchase in the app and progress with making purchases, that's kind of behavior is going to be the same or more likely to be the same in the other app. And the opposite goes as well. If you're taking a user with a long time that has been in your game for a long time and haven't been paying, and you haven't convinced them to make a purchase and progress in the game with a purchase, again, that's something that's most likely to happen in the other app that they're crossing to. So it's important to set the expectations straight when you're approaching cross promotion. These are kind of the top ones.
So you can't level up a player's value by moving them from one game to another. That makes total sense. When you talked about different genres and how players perform, in my experience as well, how they perform in one genre when they go to another, we often think of players like core players or mid-core players or casual players, even though that's not really how it works. Just yesterday, I was talking to a game CEO who's building his third or second shooter game, and they play all the time, like super hardcore games like Escape from Tarkov. And he said that his go-to casual game is, I think he said Merge Mansion or something like that. So what I'm trying to say is, like, there's an audience, and one player can play very different types of game. They can play everything from a casino to a strategy game, and everything from a puzzle game to an RPG. So how do you look at the audience? Like, do you have some kind of an audience mapping or audience taxonomy, or do you still use genre mapping?
It's a very difficult task to create that taxonomy, that tree of apps and what correlates and what doesn't correlate. What we're trying to do today is, after we've realized that what correlates, just by experimenting everything on everything, of course, excluding age restrictions, we found out which audience usually work best for cross promotion in general and which work with specific apps. However, going forward with that to the next level, using AI, we now are able to predict for specific player what would be the best recommendation. So we're trying even to be more granulated with the recommendations that we make. So there's not really a map, rather than just a very smart way of recommending users what to play next.
Of course, Playtika has tremendous tools for publishing. Would you recommend for other companies that are, let's say, leveling up their cross-promotion game, would you recommend to them to dive deeper into building a taxonomy, which sounds easier than an AI, or would you go right away into an AI?
If you have the database for all of your games aligned, creating a taxonomy should be a much simpler task. If you're coming from an M&A-based company that is doing quite a few acquisitions in their lifetime, you are going to face the challenge of trying to find how to match users, and that's not going to be easy. So I guess if you have access, sure, invest in it, because it would be kind of your map of where your user is supposed to be and where you should put your efforts in cross promotion. But it's not always easy. So again, it's important to know what you're approaching to based on the resources and the database that you have.
So you mentioned the magical combination M&A. So regarding M&A, a lot of M&A happening in the games industry. There's a tremendous amount of M&A happening. What's the what I'm trying to ask is how quickly can a company that is acquiring another company benefit from cross promotion? Does it take time before it gets rolling really well, or is it something that as soon as you've completed the acquisition, it's basically plug and play, and you know, you're firing at all cylinders?
I think that really depends on your cross promotion strategy. Because cross promotion is not always easy to implement, right? There's a lot of coordination between the studios. Not every app is suddenly open to share their users with another app. Everyone are trying to show their own success in the game and maintain their users as much as possible. So it's not always easy to set up in general, not just for after an acquisition. But if your strategy is using cross promotion through ad monetization, maybe we can talk about that a bit later. But if you're going in that route, then it should be easy to set up. And if a game already has ads integrated inside, then it's going to be easy to put in cross promotion in there as well and start already testing it. But if you want to take it to be more sophisticated and to the next level and to be more granular with the way you're looking at cross promotion within the games, it's not going to be as easy because you need the data aligned. You need to look at the segmentation, understand the segmentation. It's going to take quite a while, just like every ad monetization or monetization approach when you put it in a new game. So that really is depending on your cross promotion strategy.
And just last question about M&A, like how important do you think it should be to look at the affiliation between the games that the company is making that you're acquiring? Like, should you test some kind of a not cross promotion, just basically user acquisition from those apps to yours before making an acquisition? Is that a vital part in a due diligence? I don't know if you've done due diligence before, if that's something that your company does, but just in general.
So I'm not going to speak on behalf of Playtika for this one, as I'm not part of M&As. Yeah. But I think that it only makes sense to get a glimpse of how is it going to work for you, right? Yeah. What is the current correlation? What is the audience look like? Can you leverage that in other ways other than just the existing way of that game? So I think it makes sense. It's also not hard to do. But again, that's from my perspective as someone who's been doing user acquisition and cross promotions for quite a while. You can get a few interesting insights.
And then in your perspective, is the IDFV, so basically with the IDFA deprecation, now you have IDFV, so you get the identification of a device across the devices under one publisher. So in your perspective, is it important to have all your games under one publisher? Because we have big publishers that have put everything under one publisher, all the companies that they acquired, and we have also big publishers who haven't done it, and both seem to be successful. Like, how big of a factor is IDFV in very effective cross promotion?
IDFV has two main shortages. One is, as you said, the V part, the vendor part, is determined by the data supplied to the App Store. So if you're not the same vendor, you're not going to share the same IDFV. The other part is that the other like kind of a shortage of IDFV is that you have to have a pre-existing app of your portfolio installed on the device. So when the user would install your other app, you will maintain that IDFV. That's where cross-promotion is really important. Cross-promotion is obviously you're still targeting a user of your existing app, and that's easy to maintain that IDFV consistent. But it's not mandatory for cross-promotion. It's going to be very helpful, like IDFA was, but there are ways to overcome it, as IDFV the part of IDFA was really there to help with whatever was related to third parties, right? Cross-promotion, you don't really need any third parties. This is your own data. It's your own internal players and your own internal data collection. And you don't really need any identifier to share with third parties. So once you create internal identifiers, and in social games, for example, when users choose to connect and identify themselves, connecting with Facebook or email or whatever, then you can create identifiers across your portfolio, obviously within the privacy guidelines. But you can overcome it with other ways than ID fee. It's not mandatory for cross promotion.
So it's additive, but not mandatory. All right, so let's go to the tactical level from strategic and especially just very granular. Like, how does a good cross promotion setup look like? And if you can tell us what type of a tools are you using with your team?
Cross promotion's most common way, as we've seen it, is mostly through native ad placements. Sometimes when you're finishing a level or you're pausing the game, or I've seen companies who really ask you if you're enjoying the game, and if you press it, you're not. Then they're showing you a menu of other other apps. So that is what cross promotion has used to be until not long ago, and it still is. So that's kind of a main setup. The other setup that we've started seeing growing in the past few years is doing it through ad monetization efforts. That's what I've mentioned earlier. When now you can target your own apps within your user acquisition efforts. You can start showing app A in app B through rewarded videos. And so ironSource has come up with a tool for cross promotion that we started using and testing a few years ago, and it works really great because you can separate cross promotion from every other ad network, and you can start controlling it and have a really good transparency. It's easy to set up. It's fair because you're not preferring it or prioritizing it over anyone else. So that's kind of a new, easy way of doing cross promotion through ad monetization. So these are kind of the main two setups that we see today. For us, it's mostly through ad monetization efforts.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions I have regarding this. So first of all,
yeah.
If you're kicking off, like now I'm talking for publishers much smaller than Playtika. Let's say you have a couple of apps, 5. Is native, like, would you go with native or dynamic first? Like, what would be your choice?
That depends. If you have ad monetization set up, go with ad monetization because it's so easy. There's not a lot of dev work needed, basically none. Especially if you already have the mediation and SDK implemented, not a hard work to do. But if you don't have it, then you don't have much choice. And if it's implementing a full SDK and a mediation in the network rather than developing a native placement in the app that's going to be there for a while, and maybe you're not planning on changing it too much, then go with native.
Okay, so let's say I'm going with ad monetization because that also increases my revenue. So that's a pretty easy choice. Now, how do I decide between cross-promoting a player or going through ad monetization? Now, I understand that with the ironSource tool, it's very fair and so forth, but I'm also very wary of the churn. I'm also very wary of the players that I want to keep, and I'm trying to be conservative here. I want additional revenue. I want to increase the value of my portfolio, but I also don't want to cannibalize my games. Like, how do I do that?
Yeah, so if you're looking at cross promotion as a revenue generator as well, it shouldn't be too different than any other ad monetization or ad network. Because if you're promoting a competitor's app, then why not promote your own? There's going to be a churn rate in any case. So you might as well have it within your portfolio rather than outside of your portfolio. So there shouldn't be much difference if you're showing ads indifferently. Cross promotion is part of it. That is if you count cross promotion as an ad revenue generator. If you don't count it as a revenue generator, sure, maintain it in a waterfall in slightly lower positions because maybe the ad revenue here plays a bigger part and a bigger, of course, it's more important as it generates revenue. For some segments, though, when you're being more conservative and when you're being conservative with ads, it kind of makes more sense to show cross promotion. If it's users that you say, we're not showing them ad monetization, or we don't really care about that extra dollar coming from the ad revenue, you can show them cross promotion and diversify their experience. And again, of course, maintain the churn rate and see which segments those exactly should be. And the other thing is that if you know that your users are about to churn, then you can, instead of gaining that one extra dollar, you can keep them within your portfolio and prolong their lifetime value or seniority or DAO days within your portfolio in general.
So, in your experience, what are the type of players that are best for cross promotion? Like that are best candidates to put into that cross promotion waterfall?
Oh, that's a tough question because it really it really is depends and it is different between the genres that you're focusing in or the app categories that you're focusing in. I will say what not to focus, because what to cross everyone who are not causing any damage, but avoid new users, because new users are not hooked in the game yet. They haven't been fully experienced the app, so maybe don't reach out to them just quite yet. Give them a chance to kind of get to know the existing app before you're suggesting them something else. And also, test very cautiously with a very high value segments. I wouldn't run to them, even though they probably have the highest potential, as we said, because users' behavior is consistent. Avoid them. Get to them much later, and play around more with your users who have been in the game for a long time. They're less likely to churn because they're already very loyal to the game. Or users that have been Dorman Payers. So, for example, those who they've made a purchase, they progress in the app, they're open to pay. However, they're harder to convince now, and they're kind of now maintaining that one-time deposit that is not developing anywhere else. So this is an interesting segment to focus on as well.
Interesting, yeah. Dormant players. That's an interesting concept. Dormant payers. So that's an interesting concept, and it makes all the sense. They are valuable players, but you're just unable to convert them again. So it makes sense to move them to another game where they would likely purchase again and then continue playing. I wanted to ask one more question about like how to make the decisions when to promote the same type of game versus a different type of game, because that's something that a lot of publishers are thinking about and testing and working around.
Yeah, so I think again it comes back to the segments. App to app, similar, not similar, it doesn't really matter. What matters is if the audience correlates. So we've heard it even multiple times from other companies when they have the same, I don't know, let's go with hyper casual, for example. They have the same hyper casual games, the same category, but the audience is different. It's not always the same audience. And those sometimes, even if it's a similar app, it won't work because the audience doesn't correlate. So focus on the audience rather than the app category.
Are there any kind of like a best practices with cross promotion with different genres? Like how do you make it? I'll give a concrete example. I've been playing Seriously's Best Fiends, and I've seen some ads for a solitaire game, for Playtika solitaire game, and I've noticed that you guys were using Playtika. Seriously is a Playtika portfolio company, and you were using the Seriously Best Fiends characters in the ad for the solitaire game. Is that one of the best practices, and is there a reasoning behind that?
Interesting fact about creative with cross promotion. Because you know the exact targeting, you're almost surgical with what you're showing your users. So we understood that we can approach the users with a message that it's going to be easier, more interesting, something that we already know that they like, rather than when you're shooting in a wide range. And we tested an ad that involved the solitaire game mechanics with the Best Fiends character and art, and the IPMs were doubled because it really resonated with the users, right? They saw something, they were more curious to understand what it was because it's something that they're familiar with. It's Best Fiends characters, it's the characters they know and love. And that was very eye-catching to them. And that's when we realized that when you make the connection between your games to the players and you access it to the players, they're more open to experiment with that. They're more open to experiment with one of your other apps. It's kind of leaving a good taste on user from a brand. And when you're showing them, you come up with another product of the brand, they're less likely to try it. So it's something that we've experimenting through creatives, which was very interesting to observe.
You mentioned the IPM double. Do you measure cross promotion in the same way as user acquisition? Like, is there a ROAS for that, or?
Yeah, 100%. It's important because when we try to be unbiased with cross promotion and kind of make a fair decisions, we don't want to prefer one app versus the other. We're trying to maintain the give and take between the apps, and also make the right choices with how we see things perform.
So let's talk segmentation. How would you suggest publishers should approach segmenting their players to achieve the maximum increase in their portfolio values?
It's all about experimenting. It's you need to test as wide as you can. The process I would approach to is first exclude your high value tiers of players. You know who those are. And then start experimenting pretty wide through A/B testing. Start with monitoring. If you are a company such as Playtika, for example, when you're heavy IAP based, start experimenting with as wide as possible and understand the churn rates. Like, look at the churn rates. Look who is leaving your app, and you're less likely to get them back, because what's bigger than the lifetime value increase potential is the loss of players due to churning. And that is something you need to monitor closely. So when you approach segmentation, more than how can I maximize the lifetime value, think about how you can minimize the cannibalization and churn risk. That's how you should approach segmentation.
All right. So who should, in your opinion, run cross promotion? Is it central product management, some kind of a central function, or is it user acquisition? Who's the best at running cross promotion?
I think that no matter who it is, it should be a unit that is unbiased, because every game is, again, they have their own interest in mind, which is only natural, and an unbiased entity of the company is more likely to work well and create a very fair operation. However, to top that, kind of why is it sitting in marketing for us, is that cross promotion is a form of user acquisition. It's a very, very, very efficient form of user acquisition. And for user acquisition manager to manage, especially when it's through ad monetization mechanisms, it's only natural. But because in cross promotion you have the complexity of being an advertiser, but also being a publisher, someone from monetization or ad monetization is also important in that combination. So if you have a background in both, that's ideal.
This makes perfect sense, and I'm very happy that I didn't pursue this opportunity when it was once offered to me at a pretty big social casino company, not Playtika, to run cross promotion between their apps, and I clearly wouldn't have been qualified. So I'm very happy not to have stepped on that mine. Yuval, I think you've.
I mean, yeah. It's all about cross promotion is so diversified. Everyone can take it to their own place. But we've tested cross promotion multiple times across Playtika's, very long cycle so far, and it seems that when it's more unbiased, it's more likely to work.
Yes, but you also need to have the understanding of user acquisition to make it unbiased versus haggling between game teams, which is my previous experience of doing cross promotion, is talking directly to the other game team and making deals with them. So definitely not effective. But again, my experience is from like dozen years ago, starting from dozen years ago. So that's not relevant to this matter. Yuval, thank you so much for opening up and telling just very, very important information about and insights how to set up cross promotion, how to run cross promotion. It's one of the most strategic tools for any publisher, any, mid to large publisher at the moment. So this has been very, very interesting. And for folks who are listening, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you, and to hear more about cross promotion?
So Just a few words about Playtika for those who are unfamiliar. Playtika is a play first entertainment company. We have over 15 games across our entire portfolio, and over 30 million monthly active users. Our basic belief is that life needs play, and so we made it our job to entertain the world through infinite ways to play. And if you want to be part of that, we have over 19 global sites. Our HQ is based in Israel. We have sites in Europe, North America, Australia. We have a lot of open positions right now in a lot of domains: R&D, product, monetization, AI, marketing, and more. So check out playtika.com/careers, or follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and you can get in touch with me directly through LinkedIn. Just DM me if you want to talk more about cross promotion.
Thank you so much. I'll put all the information into the description notes below, so check those out. And yeah, thank you so much, Yuval.